Good evening. Tonight we bring you a full-scale, high-level wrap from Davos, where the World Economic Forum 2026 entered its most consequential day so far. Day 3 wasn't a conference day. It felt like a global stress test for alliances, trade rules, war diplomacy, energy security, and the world's sense of what is negotiable and what is non-negotiable. This was the day where the world's top leaders didn't just debate the future, they exposed the fault lines of the present. Our headline tonight: Trump, Greenland, Gaza, Europe, Ukraine, and the new global order, one built less on trust, more on leverage. Stay with us, because what happened here today is not talk. It is shaping how capitals will act, how markets will price risk, and how security decisions will be made in 2026. Let's begin with the setting. Davos is built for conversation: closed rooms, long corridors, short walks that become long negotiations. But the mood today: cautious, edgy, and unusually direct. The subtext across the Congress Center was clear. The world is moving from a rules-based model to a power and bargaining model, from trade as mutual benefit to trade as strategic pressure, and from diplomacy as ritual to diplomacy as crisis management. Delegations were not asking what's the theme, they were asking who is with whom now, what is the new red line, or what can be traded and what can be taken. The center of gravity today was the special address by U.S. President Donald Trump. This was not a standard Davos speech. It was a strategic statement delivered at a moment when the transatlantic relationship is under visible strain. His remarks ranged widely: economic performance, inflation, markets, tariffs and trade deficits, immigration and domestic governance, energy, including oil, gas and nuclear, AI and industrial capacity, NATO and security burdens, and of course, Greenland. Trump framed the U.S. as the world's economic engine, arguing that U.S. growth lifts global growth. He positioned tariffs as not just trade tools, but as instruments to rebalance the system, essentially describing a world where access to the U.S. market is conditional. Then came a line that hit hard in the room: the claim that parts of Europe are not recognizable and that Europe is not heading in the right direction. He linked Europe's vulnerabilities to energy choices, migration pressures, and a broader cultural and economic trajectory. The message, whether you agree with it or not, was unmistakable. The U.S. wants strong allies, not weakened ones, and strength, in his framing, starts at home: energy, borders, and economic growth. Now to the most consequential part of the speech: Greenland. Trump stated clearly he would not use force. That sentence landed like a pressure release, because it confirmed something important: that many in the room feared the opposite. Even without force, the framing remained aggressive. Greenland, described as strategic security real estate positioned between major powers tied to NATO security logic, and presented as something only the U.S. can truly secure. In diplomatic terms, this is what we call de-escalation of method, not de-escalation of intent. That's why the sentence calmed the atmosphere, but did not settle the dispute. Greenland is not only territory. It has become a symbol of the new era: sovereignty versus strategic control, alliance unity versus national interest, negotiation versus pressure. And in that sense, Greenland today functioned like a mirror. It showed how quickly security questions can turn into economic questions, and how quickly economic questions become alliance questions. In parallel, a major Davos session asked bluntly, can Europe defend itself? That question is no longer theoretical. Today, it became urgent, because disputes inside a security family are the most dangerous kind. They create confusion, and confusion invites opportunism. NATO's core challenge right now is not only budgets and hardware, it's clarity. Clarity of commitment, clarity of deterrence, clarity of who decides what. Several European voices frame the current moment as a turning point. Europe must strengthen its defense industrial base, reduce dependency, and preserve unity, even while disagreeing loudly. The deeper point: Europe is being asked to stand taller, while the geopolitical wind is getting stronger. Europe's most forceful counter-message today came from French President Emmanuel Macron. Macron framed the global situation as a shift toward more violence, more hybrid conflict, more economic coercion, and what he called a drift toward a world without rules. Macron's answer was a two-part doctrine: Europe needs greater sovereignty and strategic autonomy, and the world still needs multilateral cooperation that delivers real outcomes. He argued Europe must protect itself without becoming isolationist. defend its market, simplify its system, invest heavily in innovation, including AI and clean tech, and maintain predictability through the rule of law. The rhetorical clash today could not be clearer. One worldview speaks in the language of leverage and hard outcomes. The other speaks in the language of law, cooperation, and structured order. Davos Day 3 revealed that the West is not just debating policies, it is debating the philosophy of power. Now to the Middle East, because Gaza was present in Davos today in a serious way. Not as a single headline, but as a multi-layer problem: legitimacy, security, reconstruction, and regional alignment. The key Middle East frame that emerged today: peace is not one agreement, it's an architecture. An architecture requires pillars, governance, guarantees, funding, and a regional security framework that prevents relapse. One of the dominant conversations, especially among regional actors, was the idea that stability cannot be imported, that any peace, whether you call it Islamic peace, Arab peace, regional peace, or strategic peace, must deal with root causes, political dignity, and the security fears of neighboring states. The message from Gulf and regional voices was not merely stop the war, it was build a system where the region is not perpetually one escalation away from collapse. Qatar's position, as reflected in the Davos conversations, emphasized addressing root causes and reshaping the region's security architecture so states don't perceive each other as threats. This is important because Qatar's role is not symbolic. It often sits at the junction of diplomacy, mediation, and humanitarian channels. The Palestinian political discussion also appeared at Davos today, focused on the concept of a dignified life and political destiny. In Davos terms, this matters because it shifts the conversation from aid only to political horizon, a phrase diplomats use when they mean a real end state, not just temporary calm. Egypt's message carried a familiar but critical tone: stability in the region, engagement with all parties, and Gaza peace planning that moves in phases, not slogans. Egypt is a central actor in the Gaza file because geography makes it so, and because no regional settlement works without Cairo's operational role. While Gaza dominated one set of conversations, Ukraine dominated another, especially in the context of European security and NATO credibility. The theme today was not only battlefield developments, it was diplomatic choreography. Meetings on the sidelines, back channels, and the optics of what can be signed and what must be postponed. In Davos, optics matter because they signal unity or division. And division in this environment is expensive. One of the biggest behind-the-scenes questions today: can the West coordinate long-term support structures, reconstruction, investment guarantees, while simultaneously navigating internal alliance tensions? The larger insight: if alliances cannot align on symbolism, they struggle to align on money, and if they struggle to align on money, they struggle to align on strategy. NATO-aligned voices emphasize that Ukraine's air defense and interception needs remain urgent, that the alliance cannot allow one dispute to distract from a war that continues to define Europe's security landscape. Let's step back. Day 3 was political, but the real impact is economic. Because what we watched today was not just leaders speaking, it was risk being repriced in real time. Geopolitical risk, trade, risk alliance risk, and technology competition risk. The investor reality in 2026 looks like this. Supply chains are no longer purely economic, they are strategic, and strategic assets attract strategic pressure. Davos Day 3 also reinforced another truth. The next global competition is not only over territory, it's over compute, chips, cloud, and energy. AI is not being treated as a product anymore. It's being treated as infrastructure, and infrastructure becomes sovereignty. The hidden link between today's topics is this. Greenland is about strategic geography, Ukraine is about strategic security, Gaza is about strategic stability, and AI is about strategic economic dominance. In the new era, these are not separate folders, they are one file. Let's close with the Day 3 meaning: what decision makers will take home. First, the world is now negotiating power in public again. That changes expectations and it changes behavior. Second, Greenland has become a symbol of how fast sovereignty debates can escalate into alliance stress. Third, Europe is speaking more openly about autonomy, defense readiness, and market protection because it feels pressure from multiple directions. Fourth, Gaza diplomacy is shifting from emergency language to architecture language: who governs, who guarantees, who funds, and what regional design prevents relapse. Fifth, Ukraine remains a core test of Western coherence, and coherence is now the most valuable currency in geopolitics. And finally, Technology, especially AI, has moved from innovation talk to national power talk. That will shape budgets, regulations, and alliances just as much as any battlefield.